Hello, everybody. All right. Welcome to the Mikestand. Today is, of course, Monday, January the 12th, 2020, 2026. Of course, we're going to give people a chance to come in. Hopefully, everybody had a good weekend. Hopefully, you guys had a chance to check out last night's show. We introduced everybody to Lev Gleason's Daredevil. Um, to come in before we get started here. So, anyway, so earlier today, appear the connection here at my house is acting up a little bit again. Hopefully it won't. Hopefully it won't be too much of an issue. Anyways, I was watching, including, including of course, the lone cartoon of Color Rhapsody from Columbia Pictures Screen Gems, Disillusioned Bluebird. Interesting little bit about basically a bluebird that basically had enough of everything going on until, of course, until some crows sang to him, and he got ended up getting the girl at the end of the film. So, anyways, again, a friendly reminder to everybody: if you guys haven't already, you guys can help out by. Feel free to um, comment and or ask questions. I'll try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. Anyways, I'm going to go off camera here for a moment. Let me see if I can, at the very least, put some music on while I'm gone. Anyways, sorry about that. Anyways, we've been having some connection issues the last few days in my house here, so hopefully it won't be too much of a problem. But anyways, um, so now we're getting close to 5 minutes here, so I might as well talk about what's on tap for tonight. Um, so for tonight, we got one article I'm going to go over from Bleeding Fool. talking about 50 years later, Superman versus Spider-Man, DC, and Marvel. Look back at that that's comic book series. Then, of course, we will have the wrestling wrap-up. We'll talk about what happened on Friday Night SmackDown from Berlin. Also, look ahead to tonight's. Well, technically, tonight's Raw has already happened, but I won't go over the results till tomorrow because even though it was already done in Germany, they taped it for American broadcast. So just in case you guys haven't watched it yet, we'll go over the results of that tomorrow. Also, we'll look back to Saturday Night's Collision. Look ahead a little bit to this week. What's coming up for TNA this week is got a couple of news items there, and then we will also look to this Saturday's Genesis pay-per-view, and then we'll wrap things up with this day in each history. So with all that being said, why don't we go ahead and get ready to get started here. And again, if you guys haven't already, you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream. See if we can get some more friendly people to engage. That'd be appreciated. Without any further ado, let's go ahead and let me get started here. Pull up the article here we're going to go over tonight. All right, so DC and Marvel's Superman vs. Spider-Man 50 years later, article by Dave Huber, published today, January 12th, 2026. Let's go here. So this coming March will be the 50th anniversary of the landmark DC Marvel collaboration, Superman versus the Amazing Spider-Man Treasury Edition. So 50 years ago, so that would mean that this was originally done back in 1976. Yours truly was lucky when he ordered his as an 11-year-old. So that means that this debut is 61, I'm guessing. I, of course, had ignored the send no cash warning on the order form and carefully wrapped the necessary $2 bills and 2 quarters inside a piece of loose leaf paper, complete with the message, quote unquote, the money is in here. Some kind-hearted soul sent me the book anyways. The book was a huge deal at the time. The first real official company crossover, as Marvel was becoming the dominant force in mainstream comics after DC's long-time record of winning sales numbers. It eventually ended up being considered non-canon because Peter Parker and Clark Kent exist in the same universe in the story. The early 2000s Justice League versus Avengers story established that the DC and Marvel universes were very different and thus rather difficult to travel between. Yep. That's kind of the whole idea. Well, if you think about it, obviously each comic world, not just the big two, but Image, Dark Horse, Archie, and then some of the ones more historically, like Quality, as we talked about in the past, they all have their own self-contained universes, right? So, um, anyways, as we continue on here, the inside cover features comments by Marvel's Stan Lee and DC's Carmine Infantino, while the book details the decisions on how the iconic cover came about. Jerry Conway scripted the story, and Ross Andrew, um, in parentheses here, who began his major comics work at DC, but was the Amazing Spider-Man artist at the time of this issue's publication on pencils. The story opens with Superman taking on archenemy Lex Luthor, who's got all sorts of anti-Kryptonian weapons at his disposal. Supes eventually captures his nemesis and takes him to the Clink, aka jail. Meanwhile, Spidey encounters his arch foe, Dr. Octopus, who in parentheses, who's now got a quote unquote flying octopus vehicle, to Spidey's remarks, unquote. And I thought the Spider-Mobile was a fiasco, unquote. Parentheses here. And likewise ends up victorious. Eventually, Doc Ock knows of Luthor, as when the latter is brought into the Hooskow. It's funny how Dave here is utilizing a lot of more slang terms for jail or prison, Hooskow, Clink. A lot of the classic comic lingo for jail. That's just kind of funny. Anyway, he exclaims, quote, like Luthor here, unquote. Of course, Luthor springs his already planned escape and ends up taking Ock with him. Oh, that's something. You have the two arch enemies, the most iconic heroes in the history of comic, Lex Luthor and Doc Ock, to counter Superman and Spider-Man. The pair concoct a plan which includes kidnapping the hero's girlfriends, with Luthor disguised as Supes, of course, but it's doubtful that they knew MJ was Pete Squeeze, parentheses, and then zapping Spidey with a red sun radiation gun, which enables the web slinger to hold his own, at least for a little while, against the Man of Steel. In parentheses, after the zap wears off, Spidey asks Supes, quote, how did you get so hard so suddenly? Unquote. Parentheses there. Kapow! Oh boy. If you're of a certain age, and that above scenario rings some artistic bells, story inker Dick Giordano had said in a past interview that some of the book's pages were sent to Neil Adams' studio, at which Dick was working at the time. And the master artist, who had done a lot of work for DC at the time, in parentheses, actually redid some of Superman's poses. Back to the story. Eventually, the heroes track down the villains, and Luthor's grand plan turns out to be so nuts, in parentheses, destruction of Earth, if he doesn't get $10 billion. Whoa, that's a little, yeah, that is going a little far, isn't it? That even Ock ultimately turns on him. Still, Supes had to fly at supersonic speed to, quote, create a cresting wall of sound, unquote, to stop a monster tidal wave from destroying a big portion of the U.S. In parentheses, if this actually worked today, we could just fly a modern military jet or missile along the wave to zap the tsunami, huh? Oh wow, they even had some leaps in logic there too. Some of you might remember that oftentimes Metal and I and Rick and I, we often talk about some of the leaps in logic in terms of the older comics, Golden Age comics. But that seemed kind of out there too. So, anyways. And again, a friendly reminder to everybody, if you guys haven't already, if you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream, see if we can get some more friendly people to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions, and I will try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. Anyways, with that, let me continue on now. Actually, I'm going to go off camera here for another quick moment. I'll be right back. But what I will do is I'll put some music on. I'm gone. All right, sorry about that. Anyways, let's get back to the article here. Let's see. Overall, Superman versus the Amazing Spider-Man is just an average story, but given the scope of the event at the time, it was a must-have. I know many folks who do not, and did not, like Ross Andrews' run on Spidey's own title, parentheses, I happen to have loved it, unparentheses there, and hence immediately were turned off by the book. Not to mention Giordano's inks are just what I like, gritty yet neat, in parentheses, aka Vince Coletta, on parentheses there, and serve Andrew quite well. As, in parentheses, luck would have it, for the 50th anniversary of the collaboration, the big two are putting their marquee heroes back together again in March with the one-shot Superman Spider-Man #1 by Mark Waid and Jorge Jimenez. In what I guess is a sign of the times, how soy does Jimenez cover look compared to Andrews from a half century ago? Ye gad. Oh boy. Yeah, I can. According to the issue's in parentheses brief summary, quote, when journalists Clark Kent and Peter Parker find themselves chasing the same story, the conspiracy that they uncover could change the world, especially if Brainiac and Dr. Octopus have anything to say about it. Unquote. There'll also be bonus stories, quote unquote, aka money grabs in parentheses, such as Jimmy Olsen and Carnage. Writer Gail Simone takes a look at what happens when Power Girl meets Punisher, and Christopher Priest pens a tale featuring Superboy Prime and Spidey in a symbiote suit. Anyone? All right, let's see. Let's see. So then, Dave, the author of the article here, asks, why even consider this? Consider this? Why even consider this supporting this? I mean, if you disagree with Wade about anything political, he views you as evil incarnate. And the obese mass, that is Simone, while not as quick on the temper trigger as Wade, doesn't take dissenting opinions very well either. In fact, she's often one of the 20, parentheses, in so-called 80-20 issues, in particular, men pretending to be women. All right. So, anyways, there we go with that. Let's see. So, 23 minutes. Now, granted, I was going to try to hit. Let's see. Yeah, I think I will go ahead and move right along to the wrestling wrap up. It's still a little early, I would think, even if I'm trying to just do 46 minutes tonight, but because there is quite a bit to go over in terms of the wrestling side of things, because some stuff happened on Friday night, some other stuff's going on as well. There's also another piece of news, niche news that came out, I guess, today. So the Metal, thanks for dropping in. Of course, if you haven't done so already, if you can help out by liking and sharing the screen, see if we can get some more friendly people to engage, I'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. I'll try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. So, with all that, yeah. Okay, so first off, we're going to go back to Friday night, of course. Talk about what happened as the WWE right now is heading to is on their road to the Royal Rumble event. The Royal Rumble will be, of course, on the 31st in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. But prior to that, as they are, as they basically are on a somewhat of a international tour right now. Of course, this past Friday they were in Berlin, and we'll take a look at that. Tonight they were also in Germany for Monday Night Raw. Taped earlier, but so we won't go over the results yet. We'll go over the results tomorrow, but I will at least tell you guys what to look forward to when you're watching it. What some of the matches scheduled and stuff like that. So with that being said, let's talk about what happened on Friday Night SmackDown. And let me see. So Friday Night SmackDown came from the Uber Arena in Berlin, Germany, with Wade Barrett and Joe Tessitore on commentary and on the USA Network. Opening match of the evening saw Trick Williams make his SmackDown in-ring debut, having been recently called up from the NXT brand to take on Ray Fenix, and defeated Ray Fenix in just over 11 minutes. In a match for the WWE Women's United States Championship, Julia retained over Alexa Bliss in just over 7 minutes. In an 8-man tag team match, the MFTs of Solo Sikoa, Tala and Tama Tonga, and Tonga Loa defeated the Wyatt Six of Joe Gacy, Uncle Howdy, Dexter Lumis, and Eric Rowan. Of course, JC Mateo was in the corner of the MFTs, while Nikki Cross was in the corner of the Wyatt Six. This feud's been going on over the, of course, WWE Tag Team Championship, currently held by the Wyatt Six duo of, I believe it's Dexter Lumis and Joe Gacy. Then we also had Jordynne Grace making her SmackDown debut, being just called up from NXT as well. She defeated Alba Fire in just over 2.5 minutes of the Green Regime. This, of course, as she was leaving the ring, she had a bit of a confrontation with current WWE Women's Champion Jade Cargill. As the two women looked each other over. Of course, Jade Cargill had one of those kind of comments like, "Oh, you think you're all that? You're not all that. I'm all that." Kind of thing. As I think it was Wade Barrett who said it. Like, that's kind of what happens when you have two alpha females. Getting involved. And Jordynne Grace, she may only be 5'2", but she's a pretty stocky 5'2". They both come from very athletic backgrounds. In Jordan's case, she comes more from a body. Well, I think they both come from a bodybuilding background, in all honesty. But Jordynne Grace isn't going to just sit there and take Jade Cargill's baloney. You have basically two main event alpha women here who are basically making a name for themselves. And then in the next match, you had Carmelo Hayes and another open challenge for the United States Championship, defending against former United States champion Shinsuke Nakamura. Basically, was able to deflect the Nakamura's finishing move and hit his two moves, nothing but net and all that. Despite the fact that he had some leg issues during the match, but Carmelo Hayes retained in 18 minutes 30 seconds. And then in a match for the undisputed WWE title in a 3 stages of hell match, Drew McIntyre defeated Cody Rhodes 2 falls to 1 to become the new undisputed tag team or undisputed WWE champion. Now, 3 stages of hell basically means they have basically 3 different types of matches, the best of 3 format, but 3 different types of matches. The first match of the trio was a regular singles match in which Drew McIntyre was able to get the sneaky pin on Cody. Then the next match was a falls count anywhere match in which Cody won it at the 13-minute mark. And then in a steel cage match, Drew McIntyre would win with the inadvertent help of the Samoan werewolf, Jacob Fatu, making his return after having taken some time off to take care of some dental work. Drew McIntyre would win the match in total at the 31 minute 5-second mark, as the Samoan werewolf came in to attack Drew McIntyre. To attack Drew McIntyre. Cody tried to get him to stop, and then the Samoan werewolf Jacob Fatu turned his attention to Cody, allowing of course Drew McIntyre to crawl out of the cage and win the match, and thus become the new WWE undisputed champion. So now we're going to move on to looking back at Saturday's AEW event, Collision. We'll move ahead there. That all happened on SmackDown this past Friday. Now we'll look back to Saturday night's AEW Collision from Saturday night. Which came in the Esports Stadium, Arlington, in Arlington, Texas, with, of course, Tony Schiavone and Nigel McGuinness on commentary, and John Moxley joining them at some points during the opening match. Saw the Death Riders trio of Daniel Garcia, Pac, and Wheeler Yuta, with Marina Shafir in their corner, defeating the team of Skyflight of Scorpio Sky and the Top Flight brothers of Dante and Darius Martin, who had Zeta Steel in their corner. The Death Riders would get the win at 13:24, and after the match would lead into a bit of an angle where Marina Shafir, along with her Mega Problems tag partner, the Megasaurus Million Bane, attacking Zeta Steel. They both attack, basically Marina Shafir delivered a straight kick to Zeta Steel's face, and then Megan Bane hit Zeta Steel with the running Liger bomb, or the running sit out power bomb, after the match. So some potential there in terms of potential feud coming up. Then you saw Brody in 26 seconds. Brody King defeat Barrett Brown. Then you had in a battle of two luchadors. El Clone defeated Commander. Now I did notice that Commander hasn't been coming out with Alex Abrahantes of late, and I found out why as I looked into it. So one of the things that I guess recently did come out, there's a lot of moving and shaking as we talked about over the past week, and some guys Some contracts are up in some organizations; they end up showing up in others. So Alex Abrahantes is another guy whose contract expired at the end of December here with AEW, and he's now no longer with AEW. Whether or not he's going to continue on in wrestling, we don't know. I haven't seen any indication as of yet with that, from what I researched. But Alex Abrahantes had been with AEW since it started back in 2019. Initially being brought in as a Spanish language commentator, and then eventually taking over managerial duties for starting off initially with the Lucha Brothers before they leading them to AEW World Tag Team titles, and eventually with Commander and a few other luchadors that would come in. He would temporarily manage them as well. I've been there. You've been where, Metal? But you've been to Germany? Is that what you're trying to say? Oh wait, no. I would think that maybe you were saying you've been to the Esports Arena in Arlington because you're actually from Texas. But so you've been where exactly? Anyways, moving on to the next match, of course, Mina Shirakawa beat Lady Frost in 2 minutes 49 seconds. And then in a match for the TNT title, Mark Briscoe retained over Hechicero in just under 15 minutes, 14 minutes 56 seconds. And was a very high impact type match. Also during the show, of course, there was a celebration that was going on for as initially you had Harley Cameron, Willow Nightingale, and Chris Statlander all out in the ring to, of course, celebrate Willow Nightingale becoming for the second time the TBS champion. Of course, they invited Mercedes Moné out to celebrate, only to eventually humiliate, as Mercedes Moné kind of lost it, kind of went nuts, tried to go after the three women, and ended up getting cake, getting a face full of cake, as it were. It was that happened on Wednesday. So then on Saturday, Mercedes Moné announced that she was, I guess, taking a break from AEW. But when she comes back, she's coming back for vengeance. Yeah, I actually participated in a Super Smash Brothers tournament in the Arlington Sports Arena. Oh, Esports Arena. Okay. All right. That sounds cool. Anyways, as we, of course, continue on. So, with that being said, with all that news going down, in a 6-woman tag match, AEW Women's World Tag Team Champions, the Babes of Wrath, Harley Cameron, Willow Nightingale. Willow Nightingale is also the TBS champion. And AEW World Women's Champion, Chris Statlander, teamed up together to defeat the team of Heian, Maya World, and Vert Vixen. And then the main event in a 6-man tag match, the main event saw the team of The Demand of AEW National Heavyweight Champion Ricochet teaming with the Gates of Agony of Bishop Khan and Toa Leona to defeat the team of Anthony Bowens and Jet Speed, Speedball Mike Bailey, and the Jet Kevin Knight. So that's all that went down on this past Saturday's Collision. Now, as we look ahead to tonight's And we look ahead to tonight's Monday Night Raw, as it was recorded earlier today. So WWE's Monday Night Raw was being held in Dusseldorf, Germany, at the PSD Bank Dome in Dusseldorf, with, of course, Wade Barrett and Michael Cole on commentary. The scheduled matches for tonight included Bravo Americano, with El Grande Americano and Rayo Americano in his corner, take on the Javon Evans, recently called up from NXT and making his in-ring Raw debut here. In a number one contendership triple threat tag team match that was set up via in a number one contendership triple threat tag team match, you have for the WWE women to see who would next face off against the newly crowned WWE Women's Tag Team Champions of Rhea Ripley and Io Sky, to be determined to see who will challenge Ripley and Sky for the women's title 1 week on the Saturday night's main event. Bayley and Lyra Valkyria will take on former champs of Kabuki Warriors of Asuka and Kairi Sane, and the Judgment Day duo of Liv Morgan and Roxanne Perez. Dragon Lee and Penta are set to team up to take on the Vision's Bronson Reed and Austin Theory, with Paul Heyman and Logan Paul in their corner. And then in the main event, we'll see Gunther taking on AJ Styles, and what promises to be some setup for between now and the what might be the WrestleMania possibly. So that's all going down tonight. And then this week TNA has some interesting stuff going on. As TNA will be starting up their AMC era, as this Thursday, Total Nonstop Action will be debuting Thursday Night Impact on AMC. And then following on Saturday will be their Genesis pay-per-view. So set for this Thursday's AMC premiere. So on this Thursday's Thursday night, on the debut episode of Thursday Night Impact on AMC, from the Curtis Culwell Center in Garland, Texas, you will see in 6-man tag action Elijah teaming with the TNA World Tag Team Champions, the Hardys, Jeff and Matt Hardy, to take on Order 4 of Mustafa Ali and the great hands of Jason Hotch and John Schuyler. In a TNA Knockout World Tag Team titles, the current champions, The Inspiration, Cassie Lee and Jesse Morgan, will be fending off the challenge of the Elegance brand, Heather and M by Elegance, of course, cashing in on their rematch clause. Leon Slater is set to defend the X Division title against Myron Reed. And then Frankie Kazarian will be defending the TNA World title against Mike Santana, who is also cashing in on his rematch clause. And with that as well, and then following that up will be the card set up for Genesis thus far. Rich, after a confrontation between the two, last week, not this past week, but 2 weeks ago on Impact. Rich Swann will be taking on AJ Francis. Lei Ying Lee will be defending the TNA Knockout World title against Doom, as they now calling her, Doomsday Danny Luna. The Hardys defend the World Tag Team titles against the Righteous, Dutch and Vincent. In his retirement match, JDC will be taking on his fellow system teammate Eddie Edwards. Mustafa Ali is set to take on Elijah. Leon Slater defends the X Division title in a three-way match versus Prime, Cedric Alexander, and Moose. And then the winner of the match on Thursday will be, I believe, taking on, as on this past Thursday, Nick Nemeth had announced he was going to call his shot, as it were, after winning the Call Your Shot gauntlet. So that's all we got for the wrestling wrap up. So now, with today being, of course, today being Monday, January the 12th, let's take a look back at this day in Neat history. So let me just stick quickly here. 2005, 2016, 2001, and 1986. All right. So first off, we're going to head back 40 years ago today. As on this date, 40 years ago today, back in 1986. So I bring that up here. Nippon Animation and Fuji TV's adaptation of the story of Pollyanna premiered on Fuji Television, at the time known as FNS, on this date back in 1986. The story of Pollyanna, Girl of Love, is a Japanese anime series by Nippon Animation as part of the World Masterpiece Theater series. It consists of 51 episodes premiering across Fuji TV from January 12th to December 28th. It is rerun across Japan on Animax from February 2007. It was dubbed in other languages. So basically, it was based on the 1913 novel Pollyanna and the 1915 sequel Pollyanna Grows Up by Eleanor H. Porter. So on this date, 40 years ago today, the Japanese adaptation of the story of Pollyanna, Girl of Love, from Nippon Animation and Fuji TV premiered on Fuji TV on this date back in 1986. Now, moving ahead to, let's see, the year 2001, I believe. Yeah, 2001, I believe, is next one here. Moving ahead to the year 2001. Will Vinton Studios, Big Ticket Television's Gary and Mike premiered on UPN on this date back in 2001. That was 25 years ago today. Gary and Mike is an American adult animated buddy sitcom that aired on UPN in 2001 and Comedy Central in 2003. Big Ticket Television's first animated show. The show was produced in stop motion clay animation and lasted only one season. A total of 13 episodes were produced. The series was initially proposed to Fox, but was eventually passed over to UPN. UPN had aired episodes out of order, leading to inconsistencies within plot serialization, save for the production placement of the third and fourth episode. Well, anyway, so that happened, of course, 25 years ago today, the premiere of Gary and Mike on UPN. So now, as we will move on to the next we'll move on to the next piece in each history. We move ahead to the year 2005, 21 years ago today. On this date, 21 years ago today, in the year 2005, as soon as I grab that. 21 years ago today, Marvel's the 85th issue of Marvel's New Thunderbolts went on sale on newsstands on this date back in 2005. It sold for $2.99 for 32 pages, edited by Tom Brevoort. Sword and Claw is the name of the story, as written by Fabian Nicieza, penciled by Tom Grummett. Gary Erskine doing the inking, lettering done by Albert W. Deschamps, and Christopher Sotomayor doing the coloring. And so, one more thing to go before we, one last piece of niche history here before we wrap up. We move ahead to the year 2016, 5 years ago today. Is on this date 5 years ago today during the SmackDown taping on this date in fact, on this coming from the Cajun Dome in Lafayette, Louisiana. This was the taping for the SmackDown event that would eventually happen on the 14th. Happen on this date. The main event saw Dean Ambrose and Neville Dean Ambrose and Neville take on Kevin Owens and Sheamus in a battle to a no contest. Alberto Del Rio defeated Kalisto to become the new WE United States champion. Becky Lynch defeated Brie Bella via submission. The Social Outcast of Adam Rose, Bo Dallas, Curtis Axel, and Heath Slater defeated the team of Damian Sandow, Goldust, Jack Swagger, and Zack Ryder. Dudley Boys of Bubba Ray and Devon Dudley defeated the Wyatt family duo of Luke Harper and Eric Rowan. So with that being said, I do thank everybody for being here tonight. We'll be back here with more niche news tomorrow, of course. Of course, this Sunday I'll be joined by Rex Christian from Devil Fly Momentum, as we'll be taking a look back at comics that went on sale in July 1940. We'll be looking at, I believe it's comics that came out from Novelty Press. So with that, I thank everybody for being here, and I hope to see everybody back here tomorrow. Bye.